Okay, it's 4 minutes after. Even though there's just a couple of us, I am going to go ahead, and if others join, then they can catch up to where we're at. So welcome. Today is a training session for TransIT 5.0 plans. So if you're looking at my screen right now, should be sharing, you'd see that it says that you can sign in to our demo organization, and I am going to paste that into the chat right now. So all of our training sessions are intended to be hands-on sessions, so you are welcome to sign into our TransIT demo domain. So the demo domain is going to be live until we turn on 5.0, which is on May 29th. So you're welcome to play inside the demo domain as much as you'd like between now and then, if you want to practice clicks before it's turned on live. When you're signing into the demo domain, you would be using your same email address that you normally use to sign into TransIT, and the password is TransIT5. And so that's just for signing into the demo domain. When we go live on May 29th and you're signing into the live version of 5.0, you will still be logging in with your usual email address and password. So there's no need to change your password at this point, because when you do go to sign in, when we're live in our production domain, it will be your usual password. So throughout the training session, if I'm referring to the current production version of TransIT, I will refer to it as 4.x. And when I'm referring to our newest upgrade that's coming May 29th, I'll refer to it as 5.0. So when you're signing into our demo our demo domain, you want to make sure that you are not signing into Internet Explorer, because Internet Explorer is not going to be supported for TransIT 5.0. So you just need to select one of the other browser types. So when you first log into TransIT, you'll be signing in with your, as I said, your usual email address and then the password TransIT5. And when you sign it, you're going to be brought to the Terms of Service window. On this window, you'll see that there's two PDF documents, one that's for the Make Solutions privacy policy, and the other that is for our Terms of Service. So for your first time logging in, both to when you're signing into the demo domain and then May 29th and onward, as soon as you sign in for the very first time into the production version of 5.0, you will need to accept the Terms of Service. So you'd need to click the checkbox here and click to accept. Once you've accepted, you won't need to accept those terms of services again. So when you sign in, you are brought to the TransIT projects page, which is where you've normally been brought into when you sign into TransIT. You will notice that there is a different overall look and feel to how the projects page looks, and it's going to be a consistent look for all of the different screens across TransIT. What you'll notice is when you hover your cursor over, so I'm going to refer to this blue bar, which you'll see on all of the different screens, as the header. So when you hover your cursor over one of the columns in the header, you'll see that there's two different icons that display. Some would only have one icon, but it'll either be the filter and the sort icon, or just one of the two. So if I wanted to filter on a particular field, in this case there aren't too many fields, but just for demonstration purposes, if I type current state, for example, into this filter field, then it's going to filter to only show me those options. And if I want to remove that filter, I would just click the filter again and the X to get rid of the filter. If I was to hover my cursor in the updated column, so whether you're on the projects page or the plans page, since we're focusing on plans for this session, anywhere that you have the updated column, if you hover your cursor over the column, the first line that you're going to see is who created whatever that item was. And the next is going to show you who was the last person to update whatever that item was. And so that's consistent across TransIT. If you wanted to change the sort, you would click it once, and that's going to bring the oldest to the top. And if you click it a second time, it's going to bring the newest options to the top, which is the same as how it is in 4.x version of TransIT. Anytime you want to inactivate an item, you're going to right-click on the item and then select to inactivate. It'll always give you the notification that you're inactivating. And then, of course, it's going to drop off your view. Anytime anything is inactivated, it can always be brought back. So in the 4.x version of TransIT, when you were wanting to restore something that had been inactivated, you would click the icon that was in the top left-hand corner that looked like a trash can with a magnifying glass, and that was the icon to display the inactive items. So now instead, to view the inactive items, you would right-click the header and you would select to view inactive. So in this case, we're on the projects page, so it's inactive projects, but it's the exact same clicks that you would do on any of the other pages. When you are taken to the inactive page, you'll see that all the items that are inactivated will display grayed out like this. And so if you want to restore something, you would just right-click and restore, and then right-click the header to view active. That will both bring back the item that you restored and then bring you back to the active list here. So the next change I'll point out is in the top right-hand corner, we still have your name link displayed there, but in 4.x, there's a gear icon that displays beside your name link, and that gear icon has gone away. When you click the link there, it now takes you to the user settings page. In the user settings page, you can set your email notifications. So you can select the unchecked box to say that you want to receive email notifications, and you can put your email address into this field here. If you don't want to change that each time you sign on, it is going to retain whatever information you put into that field. So you don't have to use the email address that you normally use to sign on. You are welcome to have the email notifications come to any email address that you'd like. And it does tell you that in this, if you hover your cursor over this little icon here, it does tell you that it can be different from your logged in email address. So you can select whatever email address you want to receive notifications to. We do not currently have the SMS notification set up in either our 4.x or 5.0, but it is going to be coming soon. So when it is available, if you're wanting to turn on SMS notifications, you would of course just check the box here and type in your phone number into the field here. And so again, that information is going to retain. And so you only need to change that if there's something that's changing in those fields. Otherwise, it will just retain whatever you've entered into those fields. And when we do have SMS messages live, we'll of course reach out to people and let you know that it has been turned on. So the next section here is around rosters. So your roster says you can type in here to let people know what it is you are currently doing within TransIT. So I'll just say training plans, because that's what we're doing right now. And then there's an option to add positions, but the positions are specific to a round of testing. And so I don't need to do that right now since we're just focused on plans. We can also change our password in this window, which is what's always happened when you've clicked your name from the top right-hand corner. So you would type your password and repeat that password, and there's still no character specification, so you can have your password be as long or short as you'd like, and any characters that you'd like in that field. So whenever you're finished updating your information there, you can click Save, and it's going to bring you back to the projects page. And so that's all surrounding the projects page. And I'm going to go into plans now since that's where we're focused for today's call. So if you're familiar with how plans looked in 4.x, you'll notice that there is a significant difference to how plans now looks in 5.0. It's a much cleaner look than what we had in 4.x. So there's far fewer icons. So 4.x, there was a lot of icons and a bunch of different filter fields. And this is a much cleaner and simpler view to it. The only icons that we have on the plans page now. So the first is this create icon. So that's going to be the same icon on basically any page that you're in within TransIT. And so it's always the icon for creating a new of whichever window you're under. The next icon is the user roles icon. And so if I click on this icon here, it's going to take me inside and show me a list of user roles that are currently built inside your organization. And so if you are signed into TransIT 5.0, you will be looking at your own build. So you'll still be able to see any content that is currently in your 4.x version of TransIT. What you'll notice here is from the data migration, if there were things that were in the roles field that weren't actually roles, when the data migration happened, they did come over and get built in the roles column. So one kind of piece of cleanup that will need to happen is that you'll need to go through this list and look for any spots where there's something in here that is something that's not a role. So for example, when I scroll through my list, I see that in here I've got the name Fred Brown. So instead of entering Fred Brown's name into the assigned column, he was obviously put into the roles column. So obviously Fred Brown is not a role, he's a person. So you need to figure out where his name is showing in the roles column and update there to instead show him in the assigned column. If you remove items from this list without figuring out where they belong inside a plan, then when you go to view them inside a plan, you're going to see a number code instead of seeing something that is the name of anything. So if you're looking through your plans and you see a several digit long code as opposed to some kind of normal entry, then that means that the item that was previously in that field was inactivated, and so you'll just need to edit the field to enter something that is in fact a role. But so roles are used inside plans for times when you don't know who the person is who's going to be completing a particular activity. So say you know the activity that you need to have in your plan, and you know the type of role that person needs to have to complete the activity, but you're not quite sure who it's going to be assigned to just yet. You can select the role for in the meantime until you know exactly who that person is going to be. And then a little bit later, we're going to get into schedules, which is something new that is coming in 5.0. And when you're creating a schedule, you also will definitely need to select who the role is completing, who's going to be scheduled for a particular time slot. So you do need to make sure that you have the roles that you're going to be using inside a plan of any type, that they're created under roles here. So if I wanted to create a new role, I would click the icon here, and I'll just say training coordinator. And now that role has been added to the bottom here. Here they are. So now I'll be able to use that role when I'm creating a plan. So anybody will be able to create a role in your organization or to edit. So let's say you've figured out that you know where Fred Brown is in your plan, and you know he actually should have been a specific role type. You could edit here, and if the role type isn't created yet, you'd be able to delete this and rename it to be whatever the role type should have been. So you can edit whatever you'd like from roles there and click save, and that will update the entry there. So we'll go back to the plans dashboard page. So I will refer to this as the plans dashboard here. So some of the changes that you'll notice on the plans dashboard from 4.x to 5.0 is we have these icons that are displayed in the view column. So this column here is the view column. There's 3 different icons that you can get in this column. So the one that we're seeing the most of is the Spreadsheet View, and that's because that's all that was available in 4.x TransIT. This icon down here is the schedule icon. So like I said, that's something new in 5.0. So you'll just be able to identify what type of view is being used for that plan just by looking at that icon there. The totals for your columns have been moved from the top to the bottom. So now they're displaying down here. And if I was to make a change to any of the header options here, so if I was to put a filter on, it's going to change those totals. So let's say I only want to see plans that are for the rollout project. I selected it from my project filter, and you can see that all the plans that are not for that project have dropped off my view, but then also the totals at the bottom here have updated to match just the plans that were for that project that I selected. And so if I was to go back and then remove, as expected, it's brought back all of the plans, and the totals are now based on all of the plans that are there. Another item from the dashboard is the multiple plan view. And so the multi-plan view has replaced the chronological view across filtered plans. So if I wanted to view activities for a group of plans, I can select the first plan that I want to select. I can then hold down my shift and select the last plan that I want to select. If I want to select something that's not quite in the row like this, I can also hold down the control key on my keyboard and select the last item that I want to select. I can then right click and I can select multi-plan view. And when I do that, it's brought to me inside and shows me everything for all of the different plans that I had selected. So I mentioned that if there were fields where where you inactivated a role because it was something in the role column that's not actually a role. It's displaying as a numerical code versus an actual name. And like I said, that's just because the entry had been previously deleted. And so I could just double click on this field here and I could select something else. I could select a different role here so I could update all of these to whatever they needed to be. So I can also then use the different filters that I have up here to show different things on my multi-plan view. So for example, it's currently showing all of the different activities regardless of the status of that activity. But if I only want to see that stuff that is still remaining, I can select whatever options I want from here. So if I don't want to see stuff that's completed, I can deselect that option for myself here and just select whatever options I want to select. In addition, from this view here, you can see in the depends column. So you can have activities that depend on a different activity before you're able to complete them. So that's going to look quite different from the 4.x. So 4.x had the icon that was like a link icon that was off to the left-hand side, whereas now it's just a number that's in the depends column here. You can see that there's some that have a number with a colon and then another number, and then there's ones that just have a single number. When there's a number with a colon and a second number, the first number represents the plan number, and the second number represents the line within that plan. So looking at the first option here, it's telling me that line number 1 depends on plan number 16 and activity number 2 being completed before I'm able to actually complete this first activity in my plan. It has, in this particular case, already been completed though. You also now have this search field, so you could type into the search field to look for any item that you wanted to look for. And after you enter your search, you can either press enter or you can click the magnifying glass. And again, that's going to be the same across all the different pages inside TransIT. So I'm going to go away from my multi-plan view and go back to my plans dashboard. I'm going to create a new plan, and I'll just call it 5.0 training plan. So the number is still going to assign whatever the next number is that's up in your order of plans. The next field is the view. So I mentioned that we have the spreadsheet view, which is what all of the plans have been up to date. We have the schedule view, and then we have the Gantt chart view. So the Gantt chart view is something that's going to be coming. It is not fully developed yet inside TransIT, so it is there, and you're welcome to play around with it if you'd like to, but it's not fully set and not something that's being supported at this point in time in TransIT. But of course, once it is, we'll certainly get in touch with people and let you know that it's available for use. So I'm going to stick with spreadsheet in this particular case. So you can enter the start and end date of your plan as you always have been able to. You can select the event display, but the event display is actually more so tied to when you're using a schedule. So I'll talk about that a little bit later when we work on a schedule. So you can select a category. If your category is not available in the list here, you can just type into the field and then it's added as an option from the drop-down list. And then you can select the project you want your plan to be tied to. I'm going to just leave it as current state. And when I click save, it takes me into the spreadsheet view. So now from the spreadsheet view, you can see that we have a number of different icons. So the first icon, as I talked about from the dashboard, is the spreadsheet view. The next is the Gantt chart view. And then the last one here is the schedule view. So these are the three different views that we have within TransIT. So although there's no content added to my plan yet, if I was to click on this, you see it changes my view. And then again, if I was to change to schedule, it changes my view here as well. But since there isn't really anything to look at yet, we'll go and we'll add a few things to my plan here. So it's the same icon here to create something new. My activity type, I'm going to say training. My activity, I'm going to say develop training plan. Oops. The role, so I can select a role here. So I'll select someone, I'll select the training manager. And if I know exactly who that person is, then I can select them from the drop-down list here. If I wanted to select multiple, I can just keep selecting as many as I need to from this drop-down list here. And it's going to add them here for me. And if I wanted to remove one of the entries, I can click the X there and that removes them. The depends on I can enter in this window as well, but of course there's nothing added yet, so it doesn't make sense for me to enter anything into that field yet. The start and finish date and time fields are now their own fields. So in 4.x, the start and finish were both, so the start would be a date and time field combined, and same with the finish fields, but now they are their own entry fields, which is definitely easier when it comes to copying and pasting from Excel into TransIT, which I will show soon. So then your work effort, that's the same as you'd be entering in 4.x, so it's still you have the option of day, hours, minutes, or weeks, and you would be able to type into this field and select whichever option makes sense here. Obviously, at this point in time, because I'm just creating my activity, there's no % complete, and I don't need to select a status. The category, there's nothing entered yet, so it's going to be blank, but I'll just put training, just so I have something, and the group, I'll say training management. And save. So of course that's entered my first line in. I'm going to go in and add a second entry. So because I've already entered this in once, it's available for me. The activity is a date for training. I'm going to have the role as the training, we'll say coordinator, and we'll have that be this person here. And so I do know what the dependency is because it's going to depend on me developing my training plan, but I'm going to leave it blank for here and I'll fill it in on the outside. So I'll say that only takes 5 minutes. And so again, I'm going to select training here and I'll say training here as well. Okay, so I mentioned that that dependencies are a little bit different. So I'm going to say that line 2 in my plan here, it depends on line number 1 being completed before I can complete line number 2. So to set my dependency, I'm just going to double click this field, which then gives me an active text field to type into. And so I'm saying that line 2 depends on line 1. So all I need to do is type 1 into here. And as soon as I did that, it gave me this stop sign icon here. And if I hover my cursor over, it says dependency not completed. So all I would need to do to get rid of that is to, of course, complete the line that it is dependent upon. So I can do that either by, I could double click here and I could type 100% in here, which is similar to 4.x. Or I could right click and I could select completed. Or if I didn't double click, I could just single right click and select the status and select completed here. And so because that's in completed status, you could see that the dependency icon is gone from this second row here because my dependency has been satisfied. If you were needing to log an issue for something, you could right click and you could log issue. When you do that, it's going to immediately open the issue window. You could also do it if, let's say, you weren't ready to log your issue just yet. You could select the issue of status, the status of issue, which then gives you this icon here. And if I was to click on the icon, that's when it would open up the issue window for me. So then I could go ahead and start entering whatever it was that I needed to enter in here. And fill in whatever you'd like. If you scroll down, if you wanted to attach a screenshot, if you click into this box here, it will allow you to select a screenshot from your computer. And it then adds that to my issue, and I can click save. So if you are the person who was assigned to this issue, and if you have your notifications turned on, then you would have just received an email notification letting you know that there's something that is an issue that has been assigned to you. If you're wanting to make changes to an activity, if you double click, starting at the first field, you could tab your way all across the fields here. Or if you didn't need, and as you saw when I got to the end there, it picked me up on the next row. If you didn't need to start at the beginning, obviously you could just double click whatever field you wanted to edit. If you wanted to open the edit window like we saw when we were first creating the activity, you could go edit activity, which is going to open that window up for you where you could change multiple things at once. From here, you could also right click and you could select a few different options. So you could select to copy. As you see, it does say Control-C, which means you could also press that on your keyboard. You could press Control-C on your keyboard to copy. And so when I'm selecting copy here, that means that I'm copying within TransIT. So I'm copying from within a TransIT plan with the intention to post into another TransIT plan. Same would be if I wanted to cut. So obviously cut means I'm going to take it out of this plan to paste into a different one. And so then I would go into my other plan and I could paste above if I want to paste above one of these two lines. Or if I right clicked the header, I could paste to end. So that's for when you're pasting within TransIT. However, if you right click, you can also see that you have the option to copy to Clipboard. So anywhere within TransIT when you're doing a copy to Clipboard, that means that you're wanting to paste somewhere outside of TransIT. So let's say I'm wanting to copy here to paste into Excel. I would do the clipboard, copy to clipboard, and then I'd be able to paste my entry, excuse me, into an Excel document. If I wanted to see all of the changes for a particular activity, I can then view changes, which opens this window for me. which is going to give me a list of all of the changes that have happened for that particular activity. So I mentioned that you could do dependencies from other plans, which is something you can currently do in 4.x as well. But so let's say I want my first action in that row there to be dependent on this plan, so plan number 3, and I'll go inside this plan. And we'll say plan number 3 with activity number 17. So in order to create that dependency, I could double click here and I could say plan number 3, line number 17. And that's all it is to it. And so because that activity in the other plan has not been completed yet, you can see that I've been given the stop sign icon to let me know that the activity that my current activity depends on has not been completed yet. So that should be pretty simple. So I know that in the 4.x version of TransIT, you had the option to upload a plan from an existing spreadsheet. We have gone away from uploads all across TransIT, and that's because you can now do a copy and paste between TransIT and Excel. So I have a spreadsheet that's ready here. And so I have my spreadsheet to have all of the appropriate header columns. So when you're updating a spreadsheet that you want to be able to copy and paste into TransIT, you do need to make sure that you have all of the appropriate column fields so TransIT knows exactly where you're wanting to paste those fields into. So what I would do then in my Excel spreadsheet, I would highlight all of the rows that I'm wanting to copy. So I'll just do those for now and right click and do copy. Obviously I could also do Control C. And then I'm going to come back into TransIT here. And so I'm going to decide to paste to the bottom, so the end of all this. So I'm going to right click my header. I'm going to scroll down to paste from Clipboard. And when I did that, you can see that all of these, all the items that I had highlighted from my spreadsheet have now been pasted into TransIT here. And so because I made sure that all of my column headers were the appropriate headers, it knew exactly where to paste things in. So on the flip side of that, I could also highlight the first row and then hold Shift and select the last row that I want to select, which then of course highlights everything. And if I right clicked and did copy to Clipboard, I'd then be able to go back and paste this into Excel. So that's what you would do if you're wanting to do what was formerly called an upload. So that can obviously either be done in a existing plan if you're wanting to add to a plan that's already out there, or if you're wanting to create a brand new plan, then you would just create the outside of the plan. So back here, just like we did to create this plan, you would click this icon here, create the name and all that kind of outside details for your plan. And then you'd go inside and you do a copy and paste into your plan there. Are there any questions about spreadsheet plans? Nope. Okay, so then I will go on. So I mentioned that we have now added schedule plans. So schedule plans allow you to put together a go live schedule. So go live like a staffing schedule. It could also be, you know, something for the at the elbow support, whatever kind of schedule you decide you want to create in TransIT for your organization. So I'm going to start by just viewing a schedule that's already existing, and then I'll go back and show you how to actually build one out. So if I click here, this is a schedule that has already been made here. So you can see here's the different columns that there are. So companies, so if at your organization you have a number of different companies who are assisting you, you are able to add the company that the role is associated to. You can select the type. You can select who the person is that is assigned to the particular scheduled slot, the category, the group, and then the role. So you can see that for each role, there's all these different time slots that have been added. And you can see that some are displayed in red, whereas some are displayed in green. Red means one of two things. It either means that there's nobody assigned to that particular role. So that's what you can see in these cases here. Or if there was someone assigned to the role who is not actually eligible to complete that role, it would display in red. So for demonstration purposes, so I want to select all of these for this person. I know that this person is eligible to complete these steps, but so you can see, I'm going to change multiple here, and I'm going to select a different person. So because this Addison demo person is not eligible to be completing these steps, instead of being displayed in green, they're now displayed in red. And so again, if you're wanting to make changes to multiple entries that are already displayed on a schedule, you would select the first one. So click on the first one to select, which changes it to be displayed in yellow. Hold down your control key and then select all the different items that you want to select. And then right click. So you have a few different options when you right click. You can edit event, but if you select edit event, it's only going to allow you to edit a single entry. So since I've selected multiple here, if I want to make the same change to all of these entries that I've selected, I'm going to select change multiple. So as we saw before, Helen Pink is eligible. She's on the communications team. And so when I changed the position to be her instead of the person that was in there before, the entries turned green instead of red. So essentially, green is good, red is not good. If you were wanting to add entries onto your schedule here, you can right click, and if you're wanting to enter a new date of the same entry, you would click add date. So it's going to pull in the same, it's going to pull in the date that for where you were clicked on. You can select the, over here, you can select the role. You can either assign or not assign. The total number of instances, so that would be the number of times, number of days you wanted to cross over. You would type into this field here, and then you can select the type. So we'll say they're command center, a category, so they're on site, a group, we'll say they're support, and save. So that added another time slot to the schedule for me. If I was wanting to, I'll go here, add a new row, it'll give me the same kind of window where I can enter an additional row for my schedule. I could also have clicked the icon up here and entered all of that information to create a additional entry on my schedule. From this schedule, let's say, so this is a great schedule view, but let's say I wanted to be able to check off as people were showing up for their scheduled shift. If I instead clicked on the spreadsheet view, the spreadsheet view gives me a list of activities essentially that I'd be able to check off. So as a person was checking in for their shift, I'd be able to come over here and I could either double click and say completed to say that that person checked in, or again, I could double click and do 100, which essentially does the exact same thing. So that's a way that you'd be able to use your spreadsheet to check off as people are showing up for their scheduled shift. So now I'm going to go back out to plans. And I'm going to create a brand new schedule here. So I will say training schedule. In this case, I want the view to be spreadsheet. Again, it's just assigning me the next number. For my start date, I'll just leave the start date as today, and my end date, I'm going to make Saturday. The event display. So this is just saying how you want it to display. So when we were looking at the schedule that I was just in before, you saw that there were initials displayed for the different people who I had assigned to different activity or different time slots. So if instead of initials, I wanted to see the person's full first and last name, I could select that from the drop-down list here. Whichever entry you'd like to see on your spreadsheet, or sorry, on your schedule. I'm going to select training as my category. And again, if training wasn't there, I could have typed something else in and then click save. So now because I had created a new, it was added to my list there. So when I click there, it should have shown me the spreadsheet view here. That is something that we've logged. We know that it's showing this page off the bat instead of showing the schedule page, but it's simple to access the schedule just by clicking this icon here. And it gives me my schedule view instead. So now I can go ahead and start creating new events. So the role I'm going to say is training manager. I'm not going to assign it to anybody at this point in time. My first time slot that I want to schedule, I'm going to say it's going to start today. It's going to start at 9 a.m. So I typed 9 in there and it filtered to only show me the options with 9. I'm going to type 9 in again and say 9 p.m. So we'll say it's a 12-hour shift. I'm going to say there's 3 instances since we're only doing a few days for this particular schedule. I can enter the type, a category, a group, and save. So when I did that, now it's added those entries to my schedule. So at this point in time, when you go to assign somebody, so if I'm going to select both of these, so I'm selecting and using Control to select both, and I am going to change multiple. At this point in time, the assigned field gives me the entire list of users within my organization. I know that Patty said that she had logged a enhancement request so that going forward, when you select the drop-down list for assigned, it's only going to show you a list of people that are actually assigned to that particular role. But for now and until further notice, it doesn't show you that. You just need to know who, what person is set up for which role. So I happen to know that it's this poppy purple person who's set up to be a training manager. So when I selected her, you can see that it changed her rows to be green because she is allowed to be doing this particular, she is allowed to cover this particular shift. So you can see that now her name is displayed in full. Whereas in the previous schedule that we were looking at, the display was set to be only initials. So it was just the initials there that was showing. But it's whichever you're wanting for your display. And so then I could just continue on and add additional events to my schedule. Again, I did say that Gantt is there for you to play with as you would like, but I'm not going to bother getting into it because at this point in time, we don't have the full functionality developed on it. But by all means, if you want to play around, please feel free to do so. And that really is all the functionality surrounding plans specifically. Are there any questions on that? No? Okay, so I know that this was scheduled to be much longer, but I'm gonna give you your time back. And so if there's no questions, you're certainly welcome to sign off. But if you'd like to stay on and play around, I will be here if you want to call out to me for assistance. But otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording now. And that's all the content that I was going to show today.